the shocking case that changed American policing forever. Don't miss out on more true crime stories. Hit subscribe, like, share, and join the conversation in the comments. March 3rd, 1991. A dim Los Angeles night. The flashing red and blue lights reflected off the asphalt of Foothill Boulevard as police sirens screamed into the darkness. On the ground, a man lay helpless, unarmed, surrounded by uniformed officers. The rhythmic thud of batons striking flesh echoed through the night air, each blow captured by the shaky lens of a nearby camcorder. That man was Rodney King, and within minutes his body was bruised, battered, and broken, but he was still alive. The next morning, the world changed. A local news station aired the now infamous video. Viewers from coast to coast sat frozen, watching the shocking footage of Los Angeles police officers repeatedly striking King as he tried to crawl away. In an era before smartphones or social media, this grainy home video was like a lightning bolt, undeniable, raw, and deeply disturbing. It was evidence of police brutality in a way America had never seen so clearly before. The footage quickly spread, first across California, then across the nation. Protests began forming in Los Angeles, where communities of color had long complained of heavy-handed policing. For many, the video wasn't just about Rodney King, it was about years of pain, anger, and injustice finally exposed to the world. Reporters surrounded the LAPD headquarters, demanding answers. Police spokesmen insisted an internal review would take place, but the public wasn't buying it. Trust between citizens and law enforcement, already fragile, was crumbling fast. As the days passed, details about that night started to emerge. Rodney King, a 25-year-old construction worker, had been pulled over after a high-speed chase. He had been drinking but was unarmed and compliant when officers swarmed him. The officers claimed he resisted arrest, but the video told a different story, one of excessive force and cruelty. The man behind the camera, George Holliday, said he recorded it from his apartment balcony simply because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The LAPD tried to contain the growing outrage, placing the 4 officers on administrative leave. But by then, it was too late. The video had become a symbol, a spark that ignited a national debate on police conduct, racial bias, and accountability. Politicians, activists, and everyday Americans demanded justice. The case went to court, and the world waited. Then, on April 29, 1992, a verdict was read that would send shockwaves across America. The 4 officers charged in the beating of Rodney King were found not guilty. The moment the words left the judge's mouth, the city of Los Angeles began to shake, not from an earthquake, but from the fury of millions who had seen the truth on tape and now saw justice denied. The streets would soon erupt, and nothing in American policing would ever be the same again. Smoke began to rise over Los Angeles before the sun even set. Crowds filled the streets, chanting, shouting, some crying, some furious. When the not guilty verdicts were announced, it felt like a wound had been ripped open. Decades of mistrust between citizens and the police boiled over into chaos. Cars were overturned, businesses looted, and fires burned through the night. News helicopters hovered above the city, capturing live footage of Los Angeles descending into what would become known as the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Rodney King, the man at the center of it all, watched the destruction unfold from a television screen, his face heavy with disbelief. "Can we all get along?" he would later plead, a phrase that would echo through history, but by then, the city was already burning. Over 50 people would die in those 6 days, thousands more would be injured, and whole neighborhoods would be reduced to ashes. The violence spread beyond Los Angeles. Protests erupted in major cities, San Francisco, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, as Americans demanded change. The beating of one man had become a mirror reflecting a national crisis, questions about police brutality, race, and equality that had long been ignored. For law enforcement, the moment marked a turning point. Officers across the country were told to review their procedures, their use of force, and their relationship with the communities they served. Inside the LAPD, there was panic. The department, once seen as one of the toughest and most respected in the country, was suddenly viewed as a symbol of corruption and brutality. Chief Daryl Gates faced enormous criticism for his handling of both the King case and the riots. Internal memos revealed a department struggling with outdated training, poor communication, and a culture that often turned a blind eye to misconduct. Federal officials began investigations, and politicians, from the mayor's office to the White House, promised reform. But real change would take time, and many doubted whether it would ever come. Behind the scenes, commissions were formed. Reports were written, highlighting years of racial tension, lack of oversight, and systemic problems in how officers were recruited and disciplined. The Christopher Commission, appointed by Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley, became a landmark effort to confront these issues head-on. It exposed patterns of excessive force and deep-rooted racism within the LAPD's ranks, shocking even seasoned officials. Still, as weeks turned into months, Los Angeles struggled to heal. Communities that had once been filled with hope were now scarred by loss and mistrust. Rodney King himself tried to move forward quietly, but his name had become larger than life, a symbol of pain and reform. And just when it seemed like the city was beginning to recover, new evidence would surface, reigniting the debate and setting off another wave of questions about justice in America. Months after the riots, the streets of Los Angeles were quieter, but the scars were everywhere. Burned buildings stood like broken teeth against the skyline. Families who had lost everything were trying to rebuild, and the LAPD, once untouchable, was under federal scrutiny. Across the country, the conversation about police accountability was louder than ever. News outlets, community leaders, and politicians demanded real reform, not just promises. Then came the announcement that would change everything again. The federal government would file civil rights charges against the same 4 LAPD officers who had been acquitted in state court. This time, the world watched even closer. The Department of Justice argued that Rodney King's rights had been violated, that the officer's use of force wasn't just excessive, it was unconstitutional. When the second trial began in 1993, tensions ran high. The courtroom was filled with reporters and cameras. Prosecutors presented the same infamous video frame by frame, showing every strike, every pause, every moment that the batons fell. But this time, the narrative was different. Experts testified about police training, racial bias, and excessive force. Fellow officers spoke out about a culture of silence that had protected bad behavior for too long. The country held its breath once more. Finally, on April 17, 1993, justice shifted. 2 of the 4 officers, Stacy Kuhn and Lawrence Powell, were found guilty of violating Rodney King's civil rights. They were sentenced to prison, marking one of the first times in American history that officers were held federally accountable for brutality caught on camera. The decision sent a powerful message. The badge no longer guaranteed immunity. Rodney King's life, however, was forever changed. Though he received a civil settlement, he struggled with trauma and substance abuse in the years that followed. His name became synonymous with both tragedy and change. Whenever new cases of police brutality surfaced, from Ferguson to Minneapolis, people remembered Rodney King. His plea, "Can we all get along?" remained one of the most quoted lines in modern history, symbolizing both pain and hope. The legacy of the case went beyond the courtroom. Police departments across America began adopting body cameras, revising use of force policies, and introducing bias training. New laws were passed, oversight boards were created, and conversations about equality and justice grew louder in homes, schools, and city halls. Yet, even decades later, the struggle continues. Each new viral video of police misconduct reminds the nation that the fight King's case started is far from over. But for many, his story represents a turning point, the moment America was forced to look at itself and ask the hardest question of all: what does justice really mean? Rodney King didn't want to be a symbol, but his pain changed history. The night of March 3, 1991, captured on a shaky home camera, became the spark that pushed America to confront its reflection, a reflection that still challenges the nation to this day.